Hi, I'm Catherine and I'm editor of Reader's Digest, and I'd like to welcome you to the January issue, which is this one here. We have on the cover Idris Elba, who's talking about his new film about Nelson Mandela, and obviously we're all very sad to hear about the death of Nelson Mandela. But also today I have a very special guest with me, and that's Max Pemberton. Hello, Max.
Hello.
Now Max does, you'll know Max, he does the medical column for us every issue, and you do a fantastic job of giving us lots of really interesting information in a really accessible way, which is brilliant to have a doctor who can be so straightforward. It's fabulous for us. How can you go about keeping yourself healthy during the winter months?
There's actually some very straightforward, very easy things you can do to try and make the winter months a bit easier to get through. We all know that you're at increased risk of getting colds during the winter months. In fact, you're 80% more likely to get a cold during the winter months than during the summer months.
And that is just because of the change in weather?
Yep, it's a variety of reasons. There's more viruses around, people are less mobile, so they're doing less exercise, which boosts your immune system, and also because the atmosphere tends to be a bit drier, so it dries out the mucous membranes, and actually that mucus is there to protect the cells of your respiratory tract from infection. So it actually makes it easier for infection to get in. So I suppose that the first thing to kind of think about is like how you could boost your immune system. Now, I suppose one of the first things I mentioned, exercise. The difficulty, of course, around winter time is that people, it's cold and people don't want to exercise so much. But it's really important to kind of remember that actually exercise will boost your immune system. And the other thing, of course, is sleep. During the winter, because of the changes in light, it's actually perfectly normal to feel sleepier and to have more sleep. And it's quite a good time maybe to catch up on your sleep. And so kind of be aware that we should be really getting about 8 hours sleep a night. And I think very few of us actually manage that. Every time after about 7.5 hours sleep, for every half hour after that, your immune system significantly decreases. So it's a real, if you want to try and fend off coughs and colds, sleeping is a brilliant way to do it. The other thing, of course, is your mood. Now, people often don't realise that actually your mood has a really big impact on your immune system. There's lots of really good research to show that. Now, people are at increased risk of low mood during the winter months, and that's because of the changes in light. It's well known that when there's less light, when there's less light, you're more likely to be depressed. And as you say, it's typically called kind of seasonal affective disorder. And affective means mood, so it's seasonal mood disorder. Now, if you do find your mood dipping, there's a number of things you can do. So things like exercising has been shown to boost your mood. But also, I mean, sometimes people, it gets to the extent where actually they need to go to the doctor. So there are things like brief courses of antidepressants and medications and talking therapy, but also particularly if it's related to the season, to the light, then there are special light boxes that you can get. I think you can actually get them on the NHS now. And you would sit in front of one for typically an hour a day, and it boosts your natural chemicals in your brain that naturally sort of make you feel happier.
What about things like what you eat and what you drink? Because obviously we are at the kind of Christmas, New Year party season now, and it's very difficult to eat and drink poorly at this time of year. There's
3 key things that people have got to think about with regard to their diet, particularly in winter. The first is vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is really important for a whole variety of reasons. It's involved in lots of different functions in the body, but also it's involved in making the actual cells for your immune system. So without good vitamin C levels, your immune system is going to suffer. So vitamin C is in things like dark green leafy vegetables and also things like citrus fruit. Now, the difficulty with vitamin C and why it's different to some of the other vitamins is that our body can't store it.
Okay.
So every day we need to keep topping it up.
Okay.
The other key thing to talk about though is zinc, and that's the other kind of nutrient that's very important in the winter.
Yeah.
Now the reason that those two go together is that they're both involved in creating the cells that make up your immune system. So you can take loads of vitamin C, and if you haven't got good zinc levels, it's actually a bit pointless. And that's why I quite like lots of the actual supplements, because they come with zinc in it. So I always make sure I get a vitamin C plus zinc branded, supplement. If you didn't want to take a vitamin pill, then things like kiwi fruit are absolutely fantastic, and I would recommend everybody have one kiwi fruit a day throughout the winter months, and that is because they're really high in vitamin C and they are full of zinc.
Right,
so
okay.
I mean, rather than take
that straight away. Go to the shop.
so that would be my top tip. Kiwi fruit till the cows come home. I mean, there's other fruits, things like even apples. Just one small apple has your entire recommended daily intake of vitamin C in it. And it's also packed full of other antioxidants, which also will help your immune system. With regard to supplements, the one thing I would definitely recommend taking a supplement of is vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is an unusual vitamin because it's actually, we make it. So we make it, it's made in our skin when it's exposed to sunlight. And the difficulty in living somewhere like this, in our climate in the UK, is that actually there's not much sunlight during the winter months. And there's been lots of research recently published that suggests that actually a significant proportion of the population are deficient in vitamin D during the winter. So I would really recommend people take a supplement, particularly if you're your child or if you're elderly. It's particularly important. Or if you're from an ethnic minority that tends to cover up anyway. So if you wear a headscarf or any kind of full body covering when you go out, then obviously you're not getting the sunlight anyway. So they would be my three kind of key vitamins or kind of nutrients to think about: vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D. So most of the common coughs and colds are caused by viruses. Now they are spread, typically they are spread by droplet infection. That's how we kind of call it. So that's people coughing into the atmosphere, and the little tiny droplets of sputum, I know this is quite horrible, the little tiny droplets of sputum kind of float around, and inside that is the virus, and that's how they kind of spread. Now the reality is that actually a lot of this, it's not that we directly inhale it, it's actually that it lands on a surface, we touch it, and then we bring it to our mouths. And so we infect ourselves with this. Now,
so that's when you're on the tube or on a bus or a train, and somebody near you is coughing and spluttering, and they put their hand on it. So, but I thought that the germs didn't kind of live that long. I thought there was some period of time, it was only about 40 seconds or something.
No, sorry. No, that's not quite true. No, sorry. No, I mean, it's true that after a while they kind of dry out and they die. Although, I mean, the difficulty with viruses, they're technically not even living. They don't fulfill all the kind of biological requirements of being a living organism. And so it's actually, sometimes they're actually very resistant. And certainly it's things like public transport. So if you use public transport, and I do this religiously, the first thing I do when I get into the house or get into the office is I go straight away and wash my hands, with warm water and using soap. Some people do use those little gel hands. That's okay. It gets rid of most of the kind of bacteria and viruses that can cause infections. Not absolutely everything. So things like Clostridium difficile that cause often the winter vomiting bugs, that's actually not usually killed by the alcohol wipes.
Also, so January time, New Year parties and so on, we're all drinking a little bit too much. What can we actually do to sort of try to have a good time? Because you want to have a good time, but equally just make sure we take care of ourselves as well. How do we avoid? Is it the old thing of one alcoholic drink followed by one soft drink? Is that the best kind of, or is it?
Ideally, but again, as a doctor, there is the official part, the line, and then there's the kind of being realistic. And I'm aware that people, I could sit there and say, make sure you keep within your units a week and make sure you don't overindulge. But in reality, lots of people do anyway. And I think it's about kind of realising how you can try and minimise that within what's realistic. And I suppose one of the key things I think often happens is that people will be in the office, and then they will go straight out to their party and they won't actually have eaten. And that is something that time and time again you hear people, particularly when I used to work in A&E, I used to get this all the time. People absolutely blind drunk and it was only 9 o'clock and you think, what? And they're like, but I haven't eaten anything since midday. So I think that's one of the key things is before you go out, try and make sure that you've eaten a proper meal. You know, even if it's something like you know, a pasta salad or something with a bit of carbohydrate in that will sit in the stomach and line it. I think, well, I would say that's one of the top things. The other thing, of course, is when people go to parties, there's always canapes. Now, I'm actually quite boring about canapes.
You don't like them?
I won't eat them.
Oh,
I'm really strict.
Too high in fat and
no, it's not that at all. It's because of the risk of food poisoning.
Oh, right, okay. Oh.
So, and the general kind of rule, and one of my friends who's a microbiologist told me this, is the fancier the canapé, the more you shouldn't eat it.
Wow.
Because it means more people have touched it, and there's been more kind of touching involved. Now, of course, if you go somewhere nice, you always want to think, well, there's been immaculate hygiene, and of course this is okay. To be honest, my concern is that firstly, you don't really know what the hygiene is. Often these things are done incredibly fast. They're done in environments and bars that aren't actually used to preparing food necessarily. And often they've been sitting out for quite a long time. So they might not have been chilled properly. So all of those things increase the risk, independently of whether or not someone's touched them. It increases the risk of having an infection, you know, becoming unwell. So I always, even though it's very boring, I always make sure I've eaten beforehand, and then I won't touch the canapes.
Now, finally, you also one of the parts of your column that I really love is the Mythbusters that you've been doing for us for, I think, about 10, 11 months now. And I just love this. I love every month finding out what the new myth is that you're going to bust. What, of all the ones that you've published for us, what would you say is your favourite?
I suppose my kind of silly favourite one is that chewing. If you swallow chewing gum, it stays inside you for 7 years. Because I remember that as a child being told that. I mean, everybody. I just assumed it was true. Everybody's heard that it's 7 years. It's like, where did that come from?
And it goes all around. I first said at school. It goes all around school playgrounds, and everyone. If you swallow that chewing gum, it'll be inside you for 7 years, and it is just spread throughout the country, I think, and it's absolute rubbish.
It's completely not true. No, just pass it to you like normal. It's nothing.
No, great. Thank you so much, Max, for coming along and talking to us. So I've got some brilliant tips about how to stay well this winter. To read more of Max's work, then see our January issue, which is out now. And just from Max and myself and everyone at Reader's Digest, Happy New Year.